Please be seated. The court is now back in session. Before we invite the witness TCW 428 into the courtroom, I would like to hand the floor to Judge Cartwright to respond to the request by the International Council for Nurji, who made at a later stage of the morning session this morning. The chamber actually adjourns the proceeding already, but that International Council still insisted on making that motion. So Judge Cartwright will make a ruling on that. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, President. I couldn't get my microphone to work. Yes, as the President has indicated, it appears that after the President had adjourned for the lunch break, further comments were made by you, Mr. Iannuzzi, and we simply wish to make it very clear that this oral application that you have made has been considered by the Chamber, that there is no need to impute any impropriety on the part of the Chamber, and I see you're nodding, so presumably you did not intend to do that. The Chamber has considered the oral argument raised by you concerning one of the S21 confessions, which was quoted in the written statement taken by the co-investigating judges of TCW 428, document E3/80. First, the Chamber notes that this was a very much a last-minute application. Presumably, Council knew of this concern some time in advance of lunchtime today. Secondly, and more importantly, however, as you have yourself noted, the trial chamber has consistently and unanimously ruled that confessions obtained contrary to the provisions of the Convention Against Torture cannot be used as evidence or for the basis for questioning. Therefore, the Chamber will remind the parties that it will permit no questions on the content of the confession, and nor will it use such information in its verdict. This is simply reiterating what the Chamber has consistently ruled. As an addendum, because clearly you don't fully understand the procedures under which we're working here, the applicable legal framework that this court operates under does not provide for striking out as a remedy. So that is not an application that can be seriously considered by the Chamber. And finally, it's implicit in what the Chamber has unanimously ruled that it requires no submissions from any other party today on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Cartwright. If I could just briefly make 3 points. First, with respect to my nodding, let's just say that was a neutral head nodding. Secondly,
if you'll go, excuse me just a moment, please. You know that the other consistent rule that we have is that you don't question rulings of the bench. There are other avenues that you might take, but I note the neutrality of your nodding. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just trying to make my record for the appeal. It is our submission.
There is no need to make a record for the appeal. The ruling has been given. You have been given the opportunity to make a submission, and you can make such submissions again should you choose to do so on appeal. That is always open to you. Thank you, President. Was there anything you wish to add?
Given that this is an immediate issue, the witness is not here before us, it's an interim application. It's not something that appealing 6 months, 1 year, 2 years from now will be able to cure. So for that reason, I would like to make 2 brief points. Number one, I believe it is our submission that the legal framework, as you put it, of this court clearly can encompass something as general as a motion in limine. That is an established procedure, and it is not prohibited by any rule. So I take exception to that. As for eliciting responses and replies, that is standard motion practice. That allows all of the parties to put their positions on the record, the prosecution, the civil parties, my colleagues on this side of the stage. That's a transparency issue. I understood the President's final comment before the lunch break as to dismiss the application as it was, I believe he characterized it, a procedural defect, an application for annulment. I wanted to make it very clear, that that was not what I was asking for. So that's why I continued to speak. And I took it from the President's comment that there was going to be no further debate and that there would not be a written or an oral ruling. So I'm grateful for the oral ruling. I appreciate that. And I would just like to say that, again, the motion that I've made clearly would fit into the legal framework, and everyone in the court should be engaged in the debate. Thank you.
President, I think you need to review the transcript again. I made my observation regarding your submission. I did not say that you request for the nullification. What I said is that you should have done that even during the investigative stage prior to the issuance of the closing order. And the Chamber has seen this kind of issue since in case 001, and you have had ample opportunity to respond to any questions based on the written record of interview or confession obtained via torture, so that you can prove your stand appropriately. And we all have had such experience and issues already. Of course, the issues of confession obtained torture has been raised on a number of occasions. And I did not rule this morning as we did not deliberate yet. I only made observation regarding your submission.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've just said it again, that it was an issue that we should have raised at the judicial investigation. That was precisely the point I was trying to make. This was not an issue to be made during the judicial investigation. It's a motion in limine with respect to a particular witness that your chamber has called to give evidence. We didn't know.
President, you probably misunderstood it because the chamber already ruled on this issue. We did not issue 2 rulings on the same issue. We observed and noted your submission. So you are not allowed to speak on this topic again. Court officer, could you invite the witness TCW 428 and the witness duty counsel into the courtroom? President, good afternoon, Mr. Witness. What is your name? Witness. My name is Miss Woon. Question, do you have any alias? Mr. Witness, you need to wait and you pause a little bit until you see the red light on the microphone or on the console. When it is red, it means the system is operational, so you can speak and the voice will go through the interpretation system. Here at this court we use 3 languages. Question again to you. Do you have any alias, Mr. Mia Woon? Response, yes. It is Swai Woon. Thank you. Mia Woon, how old are you? Response, I am 68 years old. Thank you. Question, where is your current address? Response, I live in Bantiai Mienchai province. Thank you. Question, what is your current occupation? Response, I am a rice farmer. Question, what is your father's name? Response, my father's name is Swai Mia. Question, and your mother's name? Response, her name is Pan She is deceased, and my father is also deceased. Question, what is your wife's name? Response, her name is Nam Jim. Thank you. Question, how many children do you have? Response, I have 8 children, but 1 passed away. Question, what is your religion? Response, I am a Christian. Thank you. As reported by the greffier this morning, to the best of your knowledge, you do not have any relation by blood or by law through any of the civil parties recognized in this case, nor through any of the 3 accused, namely Nuon Chea, Ieng Sary, and Keo Sampon. Is that correct? Response, I do not have any relationship with any of them. Ms. Sakoboti, could you give instruction to the witness, Ms. Woon, regarding the swearing according to his religion? Sakoboti. Mr. Woon, you see a Bible before you. Please place your left hand on the Bible and rest your right hand. And please repeat after me. I solemnly and sincerely declare that I speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Witness, I solemnly and sincerely declare that I speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. Please sit. Mr. Mihwund, the Chamber would like to inform you of the right and obligation as a witness to the proceeding before this trial chamber. You may refuse to respond to any question or to make any comment or affirmation which could incriminate you. That is your right against self-incrimination. This means if you believed that your response or comment or affirmation could incriminate you, or that you would be prosecuted, and at the same time as a witness to the proceeding before this chamber, you must respond to any question put to you by any of the parties or the bench, except in the cases where you believed your response or comment would incriminate you. Again, that is your right against self-incrimination, and as a witness, you must only speak of the truth that you have heard, have known, have remembered, or experienced, or observed directly regarding the events related to the questions put to you by any other parties or the bench. Mr. Mihwun, have you ever been interviewed by the investigators of the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges? If so, how many times, when, and where? Response: I met with the investigators at my house. I was interviewed 3 times. I cannot recall the first time that I was interviewed. Thank you. And before you entered this courtroom to testify, have you read or reviewed, or were you read out the record of interviews that you made previously, that is the 3 interviews, in order to refresh your memory? Response: I read some of them, but I cannot recall them all. Question: to the best of your recollection, can you tell the chamber whether the written record of interviews that you have read to refresh your memory are consistent with the statements that you made during the 3 interviews? Response: they are rather consistent. Thank you. Today you also requested for a duty counsel, and as that a duty counsel has been assigned to you. Duty counsel, could you tell the chamber your name and your ID card or your law office? Duty counsel: my name is Sainwuti. My ID is 470. I'm a member of the bar. Thank you. The prosecution, you are advised that for the hearing of the testimony of this witness, you are given the floor first. You may proceed. And the prosecution and the lead co-lawyers have 1.5 day time allocation. You may proceed.
Kun Lục Thiên Sôm Group Lục Thiên Sôm Group Krom Praksa Genome Jimrea Nông Ong Sạo Nà Can
Mr. Wainwood. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honors, and good afternoon, colleagues in and around the courtroom, and Mr. Chiavun. Ms. Wun, good afternoon. I am the representative of the prosecution. Before I begin my lines of questioning, I would like to remind you that if you do not catch the question I ask, feel free to ask me to repeat the question. I would like to begin my first question with your work history in the revolutionary movement. When did you first join the revolutionary movement? Response. Good afternoon, Mr. President. I first joined the revolution in 1968. Question. Thank you, Mr. Wun. When you first joined this movement, what was your position and what did you do really in the movement? Response. At that time, I was a country youth. There was a person who inducted me to the revolution. What were your roles at the time in the countryside? Response. In the initial days, I joined the youth movement in the countryside. At that time, Cambodia did not gain full independence. Question. I wanted to know your main roles in the revolutionary movement. Response. I was the representative of youth in my village. Thank you. Question. When you first joined the movement, did you know any other cadres, senior cadres, and did you assist them in any way? Response. Back then, there was one cadre. He is deceased now. I do not recall his name either. Prior to 1970, you said you joined the movement in 1968. Did you ever hear of Khieu Samphan who were involved in the revolutionary movement in your location? Response. Before 1978, says the witness, I heard the name of Mr. Khieu Samphan on radio broadcast, but I did not meet him in person. he was campaigning against Samdech Sihanouk. Question. Besides hearing his name on a radio broadcast, did you ever receive any written documents from Mr. Khieu Samphan? Response. No, none. Thank you. Question. In your interview before the investigator of OCIJ, document E3/424, Khmer ERN 00418518, English 00784178, French 00784186. You then told the investigator that in 1970 you joined the Patriotic Youth League in order to liberate Cambodia from capitalism and colonialism. And at that time you were the bodyguard of the cadres. I would like to ask you, when you were working as the bodyguard or messenger, who did you work for? The President. Witness, please hold on. I note the defense counsel is on her feet. You may proceed, counsel.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I apologize for interrupting, but I believe that there was a little problem in the ERA references in French. So could the co-prosecutor please repeat the ERN numbers? Thank you.
I would like to read out a French ERN number again, 00784186. Mr. Mies Vươn, do you still remember my question to you? If you don't, I am happy to repeat it. Response. I'm afraid I have forgotten your question. Thank you. I would like to now read out a portion of your interview. According to the document I identified earlier, you told the investigator that in 1970 you joined the Patriotic Youth League in the resistance to liberate Cambodia from the French colonialism and capitalism. At that time, you were the bodyguard and the messenger of cadre. And my question is, do you still recollect the past event when you were working as the bodyguard for cadres? Which cadres did you work for? Response. Before I was the bodyguard of the cadres who left Phnom Penh to reside in the countryside. They were resisting in the forest, and my role was to provide security protection to these cadres. Question. I would like to know the actual name of those cadres back in 1970. And then after 1970s, you also provided security protection to other cadres. Could you enumerate the names to your recollection? Response. Those cadres include Von Wait, Brother Suong, to my recollection, and Mr. Kilsumpon as well. Defense Counsel, you may proceed.
Yes, Mr. President, I apologize once again for interrupting, but I prefer interrupting before there are further references mentioned. If I understood properly, the co-prosecutor is referring to a document E3/424, and in French, my ERN reference for this document E3/424, I have a document that starts with 00455-266, and that ends at 00509-789. So I just wanted to make sure if there are any further references that we're speaking about the same documents, because the ERN numbers that were given by the co-prosecutors do not correspond to what I have. Yes, just to confirm what my colleague said, I think that the ERN that is mentioned now is the ERN in this document, E3/424, but the French ERN is at answer number 1, and it's ERN 00455-267. So.
Mr. Wainwood, that is the correct ERN numbers. My apology, I refer to the wrong ERN number. Mr. Wainwood. Mr. Witness, you asserted that you were the bodyguards providing security protection to Kilsumpon, Von Wait, and Suong. Aside from guiding them or escorting them, did you ever receive any documents from Mr. Kilsumpon? Response. Never had I received any letters or communication message from him. Mr. Wainwood, thank you. I would like to expand on this topic a little bit further. In the same testimony you provided to the investigators, you made mention that you were struggling to liberate the country in the Patriotic Youth League. Who actually introduced you to this league? Response. The cadres who was my direct superior, and by the name of Moon, but he was dead. Mr. Weinhood, my apology, Mr. President. I would like to move on. In document E3/424 ERN in Khmer 00418518, English 00784179, French 00455267. You told the investigator that in 1971 you joined the armies and you were trained with military techniques. I would like to ask you to enlighten the court in relation to the military training techniques. I would like to know whether or not you, in the course of this training, you were also instilled with certain ideology, particularly the political ideology. Response. Before the training was conducted, I had been trained on the political situation of the country. They told us that Cambodia was not independent. Economically, we were under the colonialism of France. Question. In the same document, you told investigators that Ta Seung was promoted to the zone military committee, and then you were also promoted to the commander of Battalion 136 in Regiment 16 of Division 1. If we look at the structure of the Southwest Zone at that time, who had the most authority? Was it the chairman of Division 1 or the chairman of the zone? Response. I do not quite catch your question. Could you please simplify your question? Question. I would like to know the structure, the hierarchical structure in military committee. You know that there was secretary of the zone and there was the chairman of the division. Who had the most authority between these two bodies? Response. Zone had more authority than division. Who was the zone military committee at that time? Response. The chairman of the zone military committee back then was Ta Si. It was in the southwest zone. It was not in the west zone. Could you please clarify who was the chairman of the southwest zone military committee? Response. The chairman of the southwest zone was Tamok initially.
Who was the commander of Division 1? Response. Taseung was the commander of Division 1. Questioned. In that same document, you told the investigator that you were a regiment commander in Division 1. My question is the following. When were you promoted to become a regiment commander? Response. I was promoted to regiment commander in 1975. Question. Can you tell us how many soldiers were under your command? Response. There were about 600 soldiers within that regiment. Questions. Who actually promoted you to become a regiment commander? Response. It was Seung. Questioned. Can you tell us what happened to the previous regiment commander? Response. He passed away. Questioned. Within your regiment, who actually gave weapons or arms to your whole regiment? Response. It was Taseung. Questioned. Now I'd like to know about the chain of command. Based on the real situation, did you receive order from the zone secretary? Or did you receive orders from the commander of Division 1? Response. I received orders from the commander of Division 1. Question. Can you explain to us who had the authority to form a battalion or who had the authority to form a regiment? How were they established? Response. Regarding the establishment of the regiment, from the battalion to the regiment, it was within the authority of the zone as well as the division secretary. Questioned. Between the zone secretary and the division commander, did you know who have the authority to appoint them? Response. These two bodies actually met and discussed about the arrangement. Question. My question to you is that when a person was promoted to a zone secretary or a division commander, who actually had the authority to appoint them? That is my question. Response. I don't quite get your question. Prosecutor, let me repeat my question. In order for someone to be promoted to a division commander, who had the authority to appoint that person within each zone? Did the zone secretary have that authority to appoint that person to become a division commander, or was it appointed by the general staff or by the center? Response. I could not grasp that situation. What I knew was only up to the zone level. Thank you. My question is regarding the criteria for the selection of soldiers. In order to be promoted a regiment like yourself, during the Democratic Cambodia regime, did they screen people based on their social status? Response. Before someone was selected to become a commander of a regiment, a battalion, or a division, they would screen for a loyal person. Question. Did they consider the social status for that selection? Response. If the person engaged in good conduct in society, that person would also be considered. Thank you. Question. Before the commencement of the attack on Phnom Penh, did you engage in other battlefields? Response. Before the attack on Phnom Penh, I was at road number 5, that was in 1970, from Kroko to Kampong Chnang and then to Phnom Penh. Question. Actually, who issued commands for the attack? Response. Tamok was the one who issued direct orders. Question. At the conclusion of a battlefield, for instance, subsequently, did you receive orders from somebody else? Response. It was Ta Seung after that. Question. Regarding that point, I have a question for you. You said for all the commands for your attack or your fight against the Lunar soldiers, the orders were issued by Tamok. Why didn't you report to Tamok and instead you reported to Ta Seung? Response. Direct orders were issued by Tamok to Taseung and then from Taseung to a regiment or to a brigade. That while we were engaged in the battlefield. Thank you. Question. You stated that they were fighting along National Road number 5 near Kampong Chnang. For each clash, or when a victory was won, were people evacuated from that fighting area? Response. During the fighting, there were all kinds of bombardment, shelling, and bullets from the infantry on the ground. So it is natural that people tried to hide themselves and to flee from the battlefield. Thank you. In your statement before the OCIJ, that is document E3/424, EN in Khmer 0041 8519, and in English 00784179, and in French 0045 5268. You told the investigators that before the attack on Phnom Penh, the target or the spearhead from the southwest convened a meeting with the general staff, including Ta Son Sen and Ta Nun Chie, who chaired the meeting with the commanders of divisions from all zones, and those division commanders later disseminated that information to the regiments. My question is the following. Where was that meeting held? Response. Regarding the meeting by the general staff, I did not know where that meeting took place. I was only informed later by the division commander. Question. When were you informed by the division commander? How many months prior to the attack on Phnom Penh? Response. It was not long. It was about 1 week prior to the attack, as they were preparing a plan for the attack. Question. You said that the division commander told you about the attack on Phnom Penh as he relayed information from the meeting by Son Sen and Nun Chie. My question is, did the division commander told you about the agenda of that meeting? Response. I received planned for the attack from the division commander. He told us we prepared our forces from all spearheads. I was responsible for the spearhead at the southwest, that is to attack from the west, that is from Po Chin Tong, from Stung Mien Chey, and Bang Prayap, and the Tun Le Sap as well, that is from the west. I knew about this plan to attack. However, actually, the main forces were not used as they were in the trenches. Only smaller forces were first mobilized. President, the time is now appropriate for a break. We will have a 20-minute break and resume at 3 p.m. Court officer, could you assist the witness and the duty counsel during the break and have them return to the courtroom at 3 p.m. The court is now adjourned.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ